The House Select Committee investigating the January 6th Capitol riots has released a clip ahead of tomorrow's public hearing.
Thursday's session will mark the third in a series of hearings being held by the committee. The surveillance footage reportedly shows a tour being led by Georgia Republican Congressman Barry Loudermilk the day before the insurrection. While Loudermilk has acknowledged showing House office buildings to constituents on January 5th, he said participants were not a part of the riots. However, the video shared by the committee claims an unnamed man in this tour was at the attack. Joining us now is CBS News congressional correspondent Nikole Killions. Hi there, Nikole. So why do you think the January 6th committee posted this footage ahead of Thursday's hearing? What's the significance of it?
Yeah, well, we haven't heard directly from many of the select committee members as of yet, but in terms of this notification that they sent out to Congressman Loudermilk, I mean, clearly they want to talk to him. They have not subpoenaed him at this point. They have asked him to come before the committee voluntarily. They did that last month. So far, he has not accepted that request. And so I think this effort in putting out this video in part potentially could be to try to pressure the congressman into appearing before the panel. But that being said, the congressman is really pushing back quite strongly against this video that was put out by the committee that appears to be showing him leading a tour in the Capitol the day before January 6th. He said that this is a smear campaign by the committee, and he says that it is verifiably false. He also points to a letter from the U.S. Capitol Police that acknowledged that there was a tour led, but, you know, the congressman is really pushing back on this notion that he and others may have led so-called reconnaissance tours ahead of the Capitol. But what's significant about this video is that you do see and hear a man who apparently was part of this tour the day before filming someone who is talking about, you know, potentially trying to go get them. You know, he's got a flagpole and there's a sharp spear at the end of that flagpole, and the video goes on to you know, some narration of this unnamed man, you know, talking about going after certain members of Congress, whether that's Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Jerry Nadler, who's the chairman of the Judiciary Committee. So there is some concern on the part of the committee that perhaps, you know, they want to know more about this individual and whether or not, you know, there was any kind of connection between this tour the congressman led and ultimately this person's participation on January 6th.
And Nikole, each of the previous hearings have had kind of like a central argument, a main thrust to the point of what the committee is trying to say or prove. What else might we expect to see on Thursday?
Well, tomorrow's hearing continues this narrative with respect to the former president's so-called big lie. We certainly heard on Monday the committee lay out this argument that the former president refused to listen to some of his own campaign advisors, his own administration officials, including his former attorney general, who dismissed and debunked a lot of the claims that he was putting forth about the election. And so as the committee has gathered more evidence, they plan to lay out more details about what they believe was the former president's efforts to pressure not only the Justice Department, but also his own vice president. And so we expect in that hearing Thursday, really the thrust of that is going to be on these efforts to pressure former Vice President Mike Pence. Earlier this week, you know, the former vice president again defended his role that day, saying that, you know, he did his duty. We know that the former president, you know, wanted him to try to nullify the results of the election, which is something that Pence ultimately didn't do. And so we do expect to hear more about what was happening behind the scenes. And many of the former vice president's own aides are expected to testify in this hearing tomorrow.
All right, Nikole Killions, we'll be watching. Thank you.